So I'm gonna do this like very poorly. We're gonna try to like set this somewhere. It doesn't make sense to even set it. Okay. What about here? That sucks. I'm just gonna grab my stand. Nice, this will maybe suck a bit less. Maybe this will suck a bit less, governor. Oh, you know, this is... I just realized I have a webcam for this. Just goes to show sometimes your brain wants to use an option that is not the best option. Before I continue. You know, not before I continue. We're just gonna raw dog this one. I was gonna put on a nice lav mic and do the whole thing, but whatever. I had a funny thought just a moment ago. It's the sort of sobering thought that really puts your whole life recontextualized. 2016, I had turned 18. I'm 27 currently. I've got like 8 months before I'm 28. It's been a decade since high school. I was watching a video on YouTube on the creative process, and which is very much this realization of, oh, like this thought to creatively put out video content, even just something as simple as this, my thoughts, has been there since 2016. And I've done a couple of things, but there's been, to say consistency would be so unbelievably incorrect. Sporadic, intermittent dabbling of an amateur for curiosity's sake would be the most generous description of the degree to which I've participated in this medium. And it's been 10 years. 10 years. Almost 10. If I had done one video a month, I'd have 120 videos. Like one a month. That's like a small quantity. From one perspective, I have 10 years to catch up on. From another perspective, I'm still just 28. 27, right? Headed towards 28. If nothing other than I have videos, right? But they're not edited. There's not a narrative. There's no story. It's an amalgamation. It's a collection of sporadic, random shit. There's no rhyme, no reason, no labeling, no like. There's a small amounts, like a couple of narratives when I've gone on trips mostly, or particular events. There's been a thing that I was like, okay, I'm going to maybe make an album. But that's as close as it gets. I can't go back and look at, what were the 10 most significant things that happened to me in 2017. I maybe have some journals. There's just a stunning and depressing, flabbergasting lack of readily, easily accessible, curated information on this enormous sum of time, and I think I'm going to. I don't think I'm going to. I'm making a resolution to not have that be the case ever again, across multiple things, across, right, like this, right? I can document the stuff that I say in a day with this guy, right? I can record the I can, oh gosh, go away, Alex. I can do these videos, right? These very deliberate videos. I'm gonna get some meta classes I can have in conjunction with this, right? Like a personal biographer, and then layered on top of that, of course, like my photos and my videos. And then with this guy, right, I can have more video content. And then with this stupid little silly piece of software, right, I can have my digital content recorded and saved with like OBS Studio and Snagit, right? There's some Snagit for you, right? With those two things, oh, that's gonna totally mess the frame up. Well, my perfectionism hates that. Data, content, context. There is a capturing of at least my adult life, you know. I have relics, I have journals, I have snippets, and in that too, I need, like, in addition to these ambiently captured fact of matter things, I need my, like, those journals as well. That's something that I'm going to do. So it just, I don't know, it's an inflection point. It hit me, one of those milestones. I've done a lot in the last 10 years. It's so nowhere near what I thought it would be. I overestimated what I could do in a year and a decade. And granted, over the last, I think a lot of that overestimation has acutely been the last 2 years where I have been plagued by illness. Plagued by here, other places that you don't need to worry about. But I have become uncharacteristically sickly at the age of 26. And that's just, that's my hand. That's the cards I was dealt. So, but at least in this one small way, I want to do more. Maybe this big way, I want to capture more stories, tell more stories. Just make. For the sake of making. It's just, the process is cathartic in and of itself. For no other reason than it's sort of like, I read this really beautiful line. I want to grab it from this book. And it's just so perfect. It's so perfect. It perfectly captures this. Okay, so recently, I went through and I read this the other day. It's like 80 pages, quotable wooden. That was you can sit down, rip through it in like an hour or two. But this guy, I read over the course of a couple of days. Really digestible. It's like a young adult book, but this is sort of the young adult friendly version of Gary Paulsen, who, one of my absolute favorite authors. Just a prolific, beautiful human being that gave me stories when I was young, that as a very troubled young person with lots of violent and traumatic, I guess. I don't really care about like the traumatic, that's a bit of a dramatic term. Just messy early life experiences. I wouldn't necessarily consider them traumatic, I would consider them formative. not necessarily positive, definitely many negative, but they're very formative experiences, and just very unpleasant in a lot of ways. And so like the books that this guy made, tremendously helpful at that age. In particular, anything dealing with like Alaska, dog sledding, the Hatchet series all the way through. I believe Transangle Saga was by him, or Transangle, something like that. Transhal, something T Saga. And then the Tucket books. Oh my goodness, boy, did I eat those up. I wanted to be a cowboy. Should have been a cowboy. Nevertheless, this book, thinking about like the process of making, and I know there was just this beautiful language he used towards like the last couple of pages. Oh, where did it go? I can find it. Which I think encapsulates exactly, and maybe this preceded the idea, but this is exactly why I have this urge to grasp, to capture, to hold on, to have a record of, to have these voice transcripts, to record my videos. Like there's so much that I've done that if I just, to be able to go back and watch myself be really good at that game that I haven't played in 3 years, but that I spent hundreds of hours on. How magical would that be to go back and like see the highlights? And maybe I've got a snippet somewhere on a hard drive, maybe on my laptop. Don't know, can't tell you. So all this to say, there's a very beautiful bit of language in this book, which is called the Gone to the Woods, Surviving a Lost Childhood, Gary Paulsen, autobiographical. And I hate to spoil it to you. Spoiler warning, if you plan to read this book, I am going to reveal to you the most impactful thing on page 357, which is the last page. So spoiler warning, caution, caution, caution. This is the last page, 357 page autobiographical book. Sweet, spoiler warning. So at the very top, and I underlined 2 sections. Maybe I can go, it's like here and there. And so I might read the whole passage, but 80 years, 80 glorious years, absolutely packed with life. And one day, living in a shack in the New Mexico mountains, he looked at an old box of things from his life, from moving, and saw one of the old blue scripto notebooks that had somehow followed him in his life. And he picked up the notebook and opened it and found it was the story of the deer killed by hunters that he had written for the librarian. But more, still more. There were empty pages after the story, discolored, but he could still see the lines. The beautiful lines that still, after all these years, called to him, dared him. And he sat down and found a pencil and thought, what the hell? Might as well write something down. And there's something so beautiful and core to that. It's something human, right? It's something I think that's going to be, to a certain extent, lost in the next 20 or so years, but it's this very human way to be defined by the things that we do, and to have these old rhythms of being that are tied to the things we do, which most often gets tied up into this whole economic thing of capitalism, but which, you know, whatever the facade of how stories are put out is, the business of it at its core, right? Writing, creation, it's just simply that human impulse to share, to take a thought, an idea, a memory, an experience, and to make it available from one person to the next. And to get to that point when you're an old man and you've lived 80 glorious years absolutely packed with life, and you know, at the end of the day, it's still just today. For all he did and all he lived and all he saw, it's him alone in that room, reminiscing on this notebook that had such an impact on his life, what he would become and be and where he would go. And in that moment, what is there to do but to simply continue those rhythms? What the hell? Might as well write something down. God, that's so beautiful. To just love something so much. To be so much of something. That's beautiful. I would like that for myself. For whatever reason, despite the pain it causes me in my throat to speak, these sorts of mediums are accessible amongst the writing. So I'd like to do more of that. All right, that's it. Thanks.